It's a lively stuff. I also wasn't sure if I should be interviewing him at all. If he was so unpleasant, as so many people said, well, why extend his profile and give him a platform? But the fact is that that ship had already sailed. Every teenager in the country knows Andrew Tate. It's just a lot of the parents who don't. And since that interview, Andrew has been returned to Twitter. Its new owner, Elon Musk, is determined to protect free speech online. Many young people, especially boys, have literally stopped me in the street since that first interview to ask me about Andrew Tate. I've been staggered, honestly, by the response that I've had. What does it say about society that people like Andrew Tate can reach so many more people than conventional stars or journalists even? Who gets to decide where the line is?
What it says is that a lot of conventional stars and journalists and these people that we're supposed to look up to are full of shit, and people know that. And Andrew Tate came along and he said something that resonated with people, and the mainstream media didn't like it, and the mainstream narrative didn't like it, and so they painted him a certain way, and then they cancelled him. And what happened is exactly what I said would happen, and exactly what he said would happen. He only became more popular. They tried to make out like his searches went down. They didn't. His account on Rumble has just been getting bigger and bigger. And anytime this guy gets posted anywhere, whether the channel's got 10 subscribers or 10,000 subscribers, that video gets millions of views, gets clipped and put on TikTok and viewed millions of times. The guy's not going anywhere. And his message is not going anywhere either. So rather than trying to censor him, rather than trying to paint this stupid narrative that no one believes at this point, anyone with a lick of sense doesn't believe, just listen to what he's saying. Try to not interrupt him this time, because I'm looking forward to listening to this interview and seeing where it goes. I want to see if Piers has learnt, if he reads his comment section, because he got roasted last time. I read his comment section. I went through pages of his comment section. I couldn't find anyone that was like, yeah, this was good. Even people that didn't like Andrew Tate were like, yeah, Piers, like, this was ridiculous.
Yeah, I reckon that Andrew Tate's probably learned how to handle Piers now as well. I reckon he's more prepared this time.
I don't know how you can be, because Piers doesn't stop talking. If me and you sat here talking and I was asking you questions, there's no way for you to navigate me just interrupting you constantly.
I know, but it's like he probably would have watched it back and realised maybe what he could have done different.
I hope so. Well, I hope for Piers' sake that he did. Although Piers was eating off that interview, don't get twisted. Piers has called Andrew Tate back because he saw the numbers. And if you look at Piers' channel, it's no shade on Piers. His other videos have not reached that. His two biggest videos or two biggest guests are Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate. Everything else pales in comparison to that.
But also, as well...
You need to get that on the top.
I think that Piers has probably realised that Andrew Tate is not as bad as what he thought he was. At that interview, probably when he watched it back and saw the comments, he probably realised, you know what? It's not what I made it out to be.
Do you know what I really think it is? Piers doesn't like Harry and Meghan Markle, and neither does Andrew Tate. And something tells me this interview is going to be like a bonding moment for them, because they both really don't like them. Myself included, I do not like Harry and Meghan.
Why?
They're just
what they ever
fucking
do to
insufferable.
you?
they are insufferable. They're full of shit. Now,
but they ain't done anything personally wrong to you.
Does someone have to do something personally wrong for me to not like them? Do you know Ethan Klein personally? Okay, then.
Fine.
I want to try and work out in this one who you are, because it struck me as extraordinary that Google this week revealed some stats for the year. The #1 person whose name followed people Google searching who is in 2022 was Andrew Tate.
Yeah, that's quite remarkable. I think there's a whole swath of the population, especially young men, that feel disenfranchised. They feel disenfranchised with the media machine and the things they're supposed to believe. They don't feel an affinity with the educational systems or the culture. And they look at a person like me who stands up and says the things that many young men think. I haven't put a magic spell on the world. The fact that people like what I say means that they agree with me deep inside. They may be afraid to say it themselves, but I am seen as a bastion of free speech and a bastion for masculinity as a whole, because a lot of men are largely forgotten about.
So we are living in a world and in a society now where nobody can actually speak their mind. Everyone goes on about free speech, but it doesn't actually exist anymore, because anything you say is a risk that you will either get cancelled, you can lose your job, you're this phobic, you're that. You can't say anything. Like we're saying, you are literally treading on eggshells. And it's true when he says he is speaking an open mind, and everyone that's too scared to say it are all the people that are supporting him because he's brave enough to say what everyone else is thinking. But everyone else has just been closed down to think that they can't say what they want to say. And Andrew Tate's like, fuck this, I'm going to say what I have to say.
Yeah, and I respect that. It's brave to do that in this world.
Yeah.
Especially the way the things are. People pretend like these institutions don't favor a certain type of thinking, but they do. We know they do. And people that pretend otherwise and they pretend like they're the marginalized ones are idiots. It's a denial of reality, which seems to be the norm these days, just the complete denial of reality. That's not to say that you agree with everything Andrew Tate says. That's not the point either. The point is that you have your ideas out there and your ideas are open to scrutiny. Andrew Tate puts his ideas out there, and that's what the important thing is. Not that I agree with everything that he says, not that I disagree with everything that he says. The fact that I can listen to what he has to say and digest it and make my own decisions, rather than censoring what someone has to say, and I can't even come to my own conclusion. You've come to the conclusion for me. And he's speaking against that. And there are a bunch of disenfranchised young men, and if people paid more attention to that, then maybe we wouldn't have the Andrew Tates of the world, because there wouldn't be a need for someone to stand up and say things that men want to say. And again, someone's going to say, oh, so you think, oh, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I agree with every single thing he says. I'm saying that masculinity is being suppressed, and he's standing up for it, as are other people. And there's a reason that they're doing it. People don't just stand up for no reason. They stand up when they feel disenfranchised. So maybe pay attention to that, and then you might not have the Andrew Tates of the world having to stand up and do it.
Do you think you're a force for good, or are you a force in evolution where perhaps you've done and said stuff you shouldn't have done, and as you get older, perhaps as you get bigger, more followed around the world, you sense a responsibility perhaps you didn't have early on?
Well, we all evolve. Every human evolves day by day. You wouldn't be human if you didn't evolve on an hour-by-hour basis. But I do not think I'm a force for good. I absolutely not really know I'm a force for good, because I'm a force for truth. And truth is a good thing. Without truth, we're going to end up in absolute tyranny and slavery, and we're already on our way there. I feel like we're starting to combat it. My cancellation was the beginning of a change in public consciousness. Elon having Twitter is another beginning of the change in public consciousness. And anybody who stands up and speaks what they truly believe, even if it's something I don't personally agree with, I think that truth is absolutely important. And people's personal truths and people's personal opinions, even on differing sides of the same opinion, should be heard.
That was exactly my point. That's exactly what I said. It's not about agreeing and disagreeing. It's the problem with people today is that they think that you are far right, fascist. All of these nasty words, if you disagree with them. That is hate speech if you don't go along with their narrative. That is hate speech if you say something that goes against what they believe. That is a real problem, because that is putting a marker on what free speech is, and it shouldn't be like that. You should be able to put your ideas out there, and whether I agree or disagree with them, the ability for you to put your idea out there is what matters.
I consider myself British now, but I will say that part of me, the patriotic Brit inside of me, is devastated by the state of the UK currently, and I want to make that very clear. The patriotic Brit in me truly loves this country, and seeing what's happening to it, especially to our major cities, is almost heartbreaking to watch in real time.
In what way?
It's falling apart. This is a failed society. By every metric you can possibly measure, it is absolutely and utterly failing. The cost of living crisis, the crime rates, everything is falling apart. If you compare it to a country like the United Arab Emirates, you compare it to a city like Dubai, London, which should be the greatest city on earth, is failing in absolutely every metric because our leadership is a joke. If you look at Dubai and the UAE, the leadership there is so flawless, so genuinely genius. They saw ahead and have built almost a utopia. And then you look at London, you can't even walk around with a watch on. It's disgusting.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. I mean, I've never been to Dubai, but
yeah,
you can't walk. I mean, you can't walk around with nice things anymore. You got to be really careful where you drive a nice car.
Yeah.
London's crime rate is so insane right now, and the cost of living crisis is so ridiculous to the point where I feel nervous turning my heating on in the house because of how much the prices have gone up. Even my friend who is fairly well off, he was like, bro, like the cost of living is so peak that I'm wearing my hoodie and my robe just so that I have to put the heating on. You got to be careful where you leave lights on. Can't leave your TV on. Like falling asleep with the TV on used to be a luxury. It's not really a luxury people have anymore. It is crazy. He's right. London has just fallen into a state of chaos. And I don't know what the government is playing at. They've introduced these new like fines that you get for driving down certain roads. Put like these little things that you're supposed to look out for, and you get a massive fine if you miss it. They're pieces of shit. Our government are terrible. The Tory leadership in the UK is...
They're just focused on making money and that's it.
They're
nothing
pigs.
else.
They're absolute pigs. We have got one of the most disgusting it's supposed to be a democracy. They're just running amok on us. Do you remember when Boris Johnson came out and said, oh, you know, you'll save £10 if you buy this kettle? I was like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, there's a serious cost of living crisis out here. Andrew Tate is right. London has fallen into complete disarray.
It's very interesting. I was in Qatar for the World Cup. Obviously, a lot of people in England taking a very censorious moral view about the World Cup being in the Middle East at all because of their laws against homosexuality, because of their treatment of migrant workers. I've got to say, not that I don't share the concerns about those things, of course I do, but I found a lot of the virtue signalling, and I think that's what it was in many cases, about the whole region actually quite distasteful. Because when I was in Qatar, I thought the World Cup was fantastically well run, incredibly good experience. But a lot of Qataris were saying to me, you know, there's this weird, quaint feeling back in your country that we all want to aspire to behave like that we all want to live in a country with massive drug problems, with massive knife crime issues, with scenes like the European Championships final where it's complete lawlessness going on, where stuff like the NHS, the system of healthcare, is basically collapsing, where the education system is dropping behind, so on and so on and so on. And it's a really interesting perspective. They were like, I know you all think that we want to have your form of democracy and your form of life, but actually, we're fine, thanks.
Absolutely, because it's a failed society and it's godless. I think it's disgusting. We leave our old people to rot in old people's homes, and then we sit there and say we don't have enough money for nurses. I understand this nurse strike very well and how frustrating it can be if you walk into a hospital and the nurse is not prepared to work. But the nurses would be prepared to work at the current wage if they believed this country was spending its money prudently. When you see this country spending its money and just absolutely wasting it, pulling it out of thin air to fund proxy wars, God knows where that has nothing to do with them. Of course, as a nurse, you're going to stand up and say, well, can't I get a pay rise? This country has failed on every metric. And especially our major cities. I've just come to London now. I made it very clear to my private jet pilot. I said, fuel the jet and leave it running. Because the second I'm finished talking to Piers, I'm leaving this cesspit. It's disgusting. This country and London as a whole 10 years ago was one of the most hospitable cities on earth. Now you cannot walk around safely with a watch on. And you're a full-grown man. You're a full-grown adult. When's the last time there's been a serious problem in your life that you completely ignored and it fixed itself? Never, ever. What are any of our politicians doing to fix any of the problems we're genuinely facing?
Well, I saw today that Sadiq Khan is planning to run again for the third term of office as mayor. All I can say is everyone I know who's had any experience of crime at any level in London in the last few years has had a bad experience of it, of the way it's been handled. You know, I mean, I can give an example. I can reveal this now. I've talked for 18 months. I got a specific death threat on one of my son's Instagram pages in public, a public comment. And it was very specific about what this person was going to do. Yeah. I couldn't use the police to evade him. We know where you live. We're going to come and kill you. And then a second one threatening my son and his mother, my ex-wife. I called in the police. I thought, I'm not having them putting death threats on my son's thing. Sure. I called the police. Police investigated this. They arrested somebody over a year ago. And then I heard from the police this week that despite 18 months of investigation, of a publicly posted comment on Instagram threatening to kill me, on my son's Instagram, that they will not be able to pursue the case. Now, and I thought, imagine, I'm high profile. This was a front page of the Sun newspaper, this story.
If that same man called a transgender person the wrong pronouns, he would be in trouble.
Right.
So doesn't it just show how absolutely asinine and banal our legal system has become? That would never happen in a country like United.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. There was a streamer called Sweet Anita. And she was getting death threats and she was being stalked by this guy. She's in the UK as well. I don't know where in the UK she is. It's not really important, but she is in the UK or was in the UK at the time. And she was being stalked by some guy and he was putting his hand through her letterbox. He was opening her letterbox and looking through it. He followed her when she went to the shops. He sent her death threats. And the police were made aware of this and they did nothing. For months, and this guy continued to threaten her, continued to go into her live streams and say to her, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that to you, showing up at her address, so much so that people saw him stalking her and they tackled him, and the police still did nothing. So, again, Piers and Andrew are right. I don't know what has happened to the police force. I don't know if the government has taken away a lot of their resources and their facilities. I was in a situation where this is a real situation that I can speak about on camera now. I was in a situation where there was some madness happening down my road with machetes just outside my door, and I called the police 3 times. Firstly, the operator gave me shit. Now, bear in mind, my road is full of old people, so I'm worried for not only myself but the people around me. So I'm calling them. The operator's giving me shit. Then she says I'm sending someone there. Bear in mind, there are people outside my house with machetes that are stabbing other people. Nobody shows up. Someone's already been stabbed. The fight's now taken itself to the park. I call again. I don't know if it's the same chick, but I got the same attitude. Oh, we're sorting it out. Someone's coming. Again, no one comes. The fight's still taking place. This is a massive fight. I don't know if other areas had gotten involved. I call a 3rd time. She's like, we've already dispatched somebody. The fight had now stopped. Everyone was gone. I don't know where the guy that got stabbed had gone. I don't know how serious it was. And the other parties had all disappeared in cars. And guess what happened? The police never came. Nobody showed up. Wow. I have experienced that firsthand. So, yeah, no, I believe Piers when he says that. Because I've seen the streamer talking about it, Sweet Anita. I've seen her talking about it, how she was stalked for ages. And this guy was threatening to murder her. And I've seen it on my doorstep. So, yeah, London, I don't know what has happened to London, but it does seem like it has fallen into complete disarray. So for people to be attacking the UAE, don't get me wrong, the humanitarian thing, the workers thing, the way the World Cup was constructed, that's its own problems. But we can't sit on our own moral high ground when we have such a serious problem in this country with crime, with our corrupt government, with drugs, with the police force just not being responsive. We've got our own shit to take care of.
United Arab Emirates, the place I'm now residing in, Dubai, where the leadership has common sense. And I'm saying that all the leadership structures, doesn't matter if it's Labour or Conservative, across all of it in this nation have completely and utterly failed. Sadiq Khan is a loser. Because when you have a city which is losing, which London is losing in all metrics across its competitive cities around the world, and you're in charge of it, by extension, you're a loser. I will tell you right now, instead of virtue signaling and giving Qatar a hard time over their religious beliefs, what we should be doing is a treaty with Qatar to build a prison deep in the desert. Make me mayor of London. We'll make a prison deep in the desert. And if you're caught with a knife or robbing someone, you can go do 25 years with 1 meal a day in the scorching sun. And then what we'll do is we'll put cameras there and we'll interview you once a week and broadcast that out to the nation and see if you change your mind and make people understand that this is a country that should be respected and our laws should be respected. Instead, what happens? What has Sadiq or any of the people in charge of this country actually done to fix any of our issues besides sit around and talk? Nothing. None of them have done anything, but they seem ultra concerned with finding money for proxy wars, ultra concerned with rainbow flags in another country that is uninterested in them, and their priorities are completely messed up. Of course the ambulance people are. Of course the ambulance drivers are striking. Of course the nurses are striking. Nobody cares about the most important things in this nation. It's a failing country in real time, and that's why I've left.
What about the specific allegation? By the way, I don't disagree with a lot of that, because I do think this country is in big trouble.
I don't disagree with that at all either. It's true. They are putting their money and resources into things that don't matter. And then they want to point their fingers at other people. And I was speaking to my friend who's from Iraq, and she was telling me that, you know, it's Muslims. They're very quick to say something about them, but we don't look inwards at our own problems. And I'm not saying that like Muslim nations don't have problems. Every nation has problems, but they really want to point the finger at these people when there's so much shit happening here. Sadiq Khan, if he gets it, if they elect him mayor, I would honestly be shocked. The guy is just all over the place. He hasn't done anything of worth, in my opinion, since he's been in power. And London's crime rate is just going up and up and up. It's literally one of the most dangerous places now. Like as far as I can tell in the UK, London is one of the most dangerous places.
100%. But I think London always has been, though.
Not to this level.
Not to this level, but ridiculous. Out of other areas, London would have been up there.
Do you remember, I think it was like 2019? There was just like a string of murders. Like every day you were hearing someone has been stabbed, someone's been stabbed. It's just like, what is happening? And it's still happening. It's just you don't hear about it enough.
It's
like
not spoken about.
Yeah, we see videos on TikTok. If you're in the UK, you probably know what we're talking about. You see videos on TikTok of people walking into shops with guns, stabbing people, like just at random. A complete random. Some of them don't even have any motive. They just attack people at random. It makes no sense.
What about the issue of race? And I mentioned that in the context of the Harry and Meghan ongoing debate, their war with the royal family, war against the monarchy, their specific constant referencing to the fact that they believe they were driven out of here because of racism in Britain. What do you make of that debate?
That's absolute fallacy.
And you're from a mixed race background yourself.
Correct. I'm from a mixed race background myself. And while we're discussing the leaders of the UK, although I do think they're doing a terrible job, it's kind of hard for Meghan to say that the UK is a racist country when the leader of the UK is darker skinned than her and the mayor of London is darker skinned than her. And I am a person who's probably darker skinned than her, and I've never experienced any kind of bigotry against myself besides the fact I'm a straight male. I'll get bigotry for that before I'll get bigotry for my skin color. I think it's just a cop-out, and her not wanting to be perspicacious and self-reflective enough to understand that she has attacked an age-old institution, and there are people who are very patriotic about that institution, and by attacking it and bringing a degree of distaste to it, there's going to be people who don't like her. And if you're a dislikable person, you can't just instantly stand up and say it's because of my skin color. It might be because of your actions and some of the things you've said.
I mean, I think there's probably no doubt she's had racism.
Just before we continue, did you watch the Harry and Meghan documentary that came out?
On Netflix? I'm not going to watch it, but I did hear about it.
Okay, I haven't watched it either, but I was just wondering, because some people have got I think people have got a nicer opinion of her after watching that.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be one of those people because I know Netflix are going to paint it up very nicely. They're going to put in a nice little ribbon to paint what's his name? Harry and Meghan as the victims in this. But look, I don't like the royal family. Okay, like I've got no shame in saying that. I don't like the fact that the Queen bailed her son out, who is quite obviously done something with children. I know that's her son, but there are lines that shouldn't be crossed, and I don't trust the royal family as far as I can throw them. At the same time, I don't like Harry and Meghan either. I think that they're full of shit. I think that this is not a race thing. This is not a race thing. If anybody went against the royal family, the people of this country are going to go against them, because they're very protective over that institution. Regardless of what I feel towards them, if people came at me for what I've just said about the royal family, the fact that I don't like them, it's not going to be because I'm black. It's because I attacked the institution. It's got nothing to do with race, and Meghan pulling the race card is ridiculous. If you went after the royal family, or if any of our English friends did, and they started making comments about the royal family, people will go after them, not because of their race, but because of what they're saying. So her playing the race card, I think, was a piece of shit move to do. I don't think that she should have done it. I don't think it makes her look very good. Netflix can paint up their story as much as they want. Personally, I don't even... that whole situation to me is just ridiculous. I watched her interview, I think it was with Oprah, where I just listened to her spew nonsense. And I knew that despite my feelings towards the royal family, she was full of shit. She was just full of shit. The English public are not being racist towards her at all. People don't dislike her because she's black. That's not the reason. People dislike her because she comes out of a whole load of nonsense. And the things that she says doesn't just stop with the royal family. I've heard her on her podcast talking nonsense. I've seen her in interviews talking nonsense. And I mean, we could do a whole video dissecting the nonsense that she talks about. So for me, it's unrelated. I can dislike the royal family and also dislike Meghan.
You know what it is? I haven't really paid too much attention to everything that happened to gauge and form my own opinion.
That's fair enough.
So I don't understand it enough to
make a comment.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I mean, that's how it should be. If you're not entirely sure, it's not good to comment on something.
Any evidence?
The universe is a funny place, Piers. If you're looking for something, you're going to find it, right? When I got canceled, when they attacked me unfairly, lied about me across the entire mainstream media, deleted me from social media so I couldn't defend myself, and lied about me repeatedly, I could have stood up and said, it's because I'm brown. I didn't do that. I sat and said, okay, there's people who misunderstand my message. My message is a positive one. People misunderstand me. Let me self-reflect and understand that, yes, perhaps this said a long time ago was said in the wrong way. Perhaps this was misunderstood. Perhaps people don't understand this. I could have just copped out and could have just been refusing to self-reflect on any level and said, it's because I'm brown, that's why they did it. But that's not the mature way to be as an adult.
That's a very good point. Have you noticed Andrew Tate never did that? Andrew Tate is mixed just like me. We're no different. I might be slightly darker than Andrew Tate, but we're the same. I've never heard him pull the race card, ever. Never heard him say it's because I'm a black man. Not once. And people love doing that because it's an easy thing to fall back on. It's very easy to say they cancel me because I'm black. They're coming after me because I'm black. Not because of the things that I might have said, not because of the things that, the way people digested information, because I'm black. It's a cop-out. It's a lazy way to go about getting your own way. So I respect Andrew Tate for not doing that. I always knew he didn't do it, but it's good to point it out that he never went down the race card. He was very aware of the things that he was putting out there, how it could be taken, and what he needs to do to get back to a position where he can get his message out there without being cancelled.
Andrew Tate is back too for now, anyway. He was first removed in 2017 for saying women should bear some responsibility as victims of rape, and he hasn't exactly been shy since his reprieve. Let's take a look. Genghis Khan had endless women and 200 children as a reward for conquest. He tweeted, "I'm the most searched man on the planet. I've conquered Earth. I'm the highest status male on the planet. Females do not expect loyalty from me. They only expect that of
That's ridiculous.
But no, it's true though. It's true. Who's
how
getting
can you
with
say lesser men?
No, okay, no. His overarching point there is that like he can go out and impregnate several women. Obviously, not in the same fashion that Genghis Khan did, because I'm sure Genghis Khan did some crazy shit to women. But he can go out there and have multiple wives and have multiple babies. And nobody, I mean, if you got with Andrew Tate, do you expect him to be faithful to you?
That just shows the type of world we're living in now.
That's the world we've always lived in. The most high status male can go out there and do these things. I mean, he just used Genghis Khan as an example. Genghis Khan lived ages ago and he conquered the planet, right? That is what we lived through.
I don't know who that is, but...
Genghis Khan conquered the planet so much that they believe that there's a decent percentage of the world that are direct descendants of him. That's how many women he impregnated. He was a conqueror, right? He was, you know, the Mongols, the Mongols, the people that the samurai fought against. He was basically the figurehead. And so he went from country to country, basically destroying it and taking it over. So you could be a descendant of Genghis Khan and you don't know it. That's how many women he impregnated. Like they say, it takes one man to impregnate all these women and bring the population back. Genghis Khan basically did that. He's doing, you know what Nick Cannon's doing? He's just kind of getting all these women pregnant. Now imagine that times by 1 billion. That's what Genghis Khan did. So to Andrew Tate's point, he can go and impregnate 100 women if he wants, and none of them are going to expect loyalty from him because he's the most searched man on Google. And if you've searched up Andrew Tate and you know anything about him, and you expect him to be faithful to one woman, you are delusional. So he's right when he says that.
I think it's just dumb of these women.
Well, you can think it's dumb, but is it reality or not?
But the thing is that Andrew Tate wasn't really putting stuff out there that was to say he's not a loyal man.
I mean, he's been very open with the fact that if he is with somebody and he goes to another town or another city and he feels like he wants to step out, he will. He's also said that if he wants to be loyal to one woman, he can.
Yeah, because he strikes me more as a traditional male.
Well, what kind of traditional male are we talking about here? Because back in the day, men used to have multiple wives.
So then maybe that then.
Yeah. But again, that's consensual. Like I'm sure he's not going to force himself on anyone the way Genghis Khan did, but he can do that if he wants.
Imagine having less than 10 children because you're a who doesn't have 4 wives, genetic failures. Finally, if a girl follows me and she's hot and I see a single picture of her in a private jet, it's block. Women can't afford jets. Women are all brokies. Why are you flying around on some man's jet? You should have been a virgin when I met you. Haram. All right, Andrew.
Okay, whoa. Pause for a second.
That is hilarious.
Pause for a second.
I'm sure it's tongue-in-cheek.
Pause. See the way you're laughing at that? Do you see the way you're laughing at that?
What's wrong with that?
When we done the episode and I was laughing at the funny things that women were saying about men on Twitter, you was all like, that's not even funny.
Okay, let me explain to you why.
But you find that funny?
Yeah, I'll explain to you what the difference is. The women that you were laughing at were specifically picking on men as in manipulating them. Andrew Tate's simply saying here that he's going to block you if you own a jet or if you fly on jets. He's not saying he's going to go and manipulate a woman, which is what you were laughing at.
No, that's incorrect. That's incorrect.
What were you laughing at?
The stuff I was laughing, like I said, if I block a guy and he doesn't email me, do you know what I'm saying? He's saying, Why are you flying around on some man's jet? You should have been a virgin when I met you. Haram.
Yeah. It's what you're saying is different.
No.
Do you want me to
Women can't
literally-
afford jets. Women are all brokies. It's not one rule for one and not one rule for the
It's
other,
not
Michael.
one rule for
no,
one.
no. Don't try come for me when I'm laughing at toxic, funny, dark jokes about men, and then when it's about women, you don't care. It's ha ha ha. This is so funny.
No.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
jokes
yeah.
that you were laughing at literally said it's so fun to manipulate men.
I didn't laugh at that one.
What's the exact
I
quote?
did not
Give me the
laugh at
exact
that
quote
one.
of
I
what you
laughed at some of the other ones.
Give me the quote of what you laughed at.
For example, one of them was I'd have to get it up to show you.
Go on, we got time.
It's like, but you get my point.
No, I want to hear it.
No,
'Cause
because
the
I
joke that
didn't
you
find
laughed
any
at-
of them ones funny, but I was saying to you about the blocking one is funny.
What was the exact quote? What did you find funny about the blocking? Because there was something in there that I didn't like. What was it?
I've blocked him on everything. How dare he not email me? I think a lot of what people write on Twitter sometimes is just a bit of a joke. Like, I'm the sort of person I might like or retweet certain tweets that might say, like, for example, like, I blocked him on everything. How dare he not email me?
Why would you retweet that?
No, I don't retweet it, but I'll like it because I
Why?
find it funny.
But you know it's not funny.
Yeah, because you blocked
Where's
him,
the
but
joke?
you still want him to chase you and feel like he wants you, so you want him to email you.
Where is the joke?
The joke is in how ridiculous it is.
In how ridiculous the tweet
Yeah.
is, or how ridiculous you look by liking it?
No, how ridiculous it is that it's like, it's just, I find it funny.
But no. I don't
Like,
get.
it's like taking him, like, how dare he not email me? How dare he?
But you blocked him.
Or you know when you see them things and guys are like, oh, my girlfriend got mad at me today because I didn't do this. Like, oh, let me think of a good one. My girlfriend got mad at me today because it rained. That's my fault. I should have checked the weather report and made sure I stopped the rain.
But there's a joke there.
Yeah,
Where is the joke in your one?
It's just, it's because it's so ridiculous. You see what I'm saying? It's ridiculous because he can't stop the rain. And it's ridiculous that you've blocked someone on everything, but you still want them to go out their way to contact
But
you.
in both of those scenarios, the ridiculous person is the woman.
Why? I find it funny. That's my sense of humor.
Not that you don't find it funny,
And yes, I would want him to email me if I blocked him.
but you realize you're the ridiculous one in that situation. You block someone,
Yeah.
and then you want them to contact you,
Yeah.
but you block them.
Yeah.
So why are you not contacting him?
Because he obviously has done something wrong, and you want to feel like he really wants you, that he's going out of his way to email you.
He has obviously done something wrong. It couldn't be that you blocked him and you did something wrong. Yeah. How does that even remotely match what Andrew Tate has said here?
I think what Andrew Tate's saying here is worse.
How is it
Thank you
worse?
very much.
If a girl follows me and she's hot and I see a single picture of her in a private jet, she's blocked.
Fine. That I would have been fine with.
Yeah.
Because I can understand. It's because maybe she's a certain type of girl that's getting on private jets with men, whatever.
Most of the time when you see Instagram,
But you don't
girls
have to turn around and say women can't afford jets. Women are all brokies. That's rude. That's rude in itself. That's equivalent to what these women were writing about men. Why are you flying around on some man's jet? That's fine. You could have had that with that. You should have been a virgin when I met you. Haram. That's rude.
How is that rude? You should have been a virgin when I met you. Haram.
And you should have emailed me when I blocked you. Same shit.
No,
Yes.
you block me for something you did, and then I'm supposed to reach out.
I'm a grown woman. Why should I be a virgin?
That's fine. You'd be a grown woman, but
Okay.
the woman that you're referencing, that you're laughing at, is acting like a child. She makes
Not
the
really.
mistake.
If I blocked a guy, I want him to email me.
That's childish.
Okay, I'm a child then. Okay.
Yeah, but that's what. No, it's not. It's not okay. It's you're not acknowledging that they're two different things.
I'm acknowledging the fact that you're laughing ha 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 when it's about women, but when people write things about men, you don't like it. That's what I'm
No, I
acknowledging.
don't mind women writing jokes about men.
But you didn't find any of it funny, but you find this funny. I don't find this funny.
But it's not because he's a man writing about a woman. It's because what he's written is funny.
No, it's not that it's Andrew Tate. This could have been any man that wrote it. I don't find it funny.
No, it's okay for you to not find it funny, but you're coming at me.
Yes, I'm coming at you because you find that funny, but you was coming at me when I found that shit funny.
Yeah, and I told you why. But the reasons you're giving
and I just told you why.
No, all you said to me is that's rude. I gave you a breakdown of reasons in that video why it wasn't funny.
Women can't afford jets. Women are all brokies. That's quite offensive to women. Is putting us down.
Okay, can I ask you this then?
We're not all brokies.
Fine, let's say all is the wrong word to use because all women are not brokies.
And there's a lot of women who can afford private jets over men that can't.
I would say
there's a lot of successful women out there.
What would you say the ratio is? Although
I don't care what the ratio is.
No.
I don't
we're
care.
having a discussion. You can't
we're
say
in
you don't care.
We're in the year 2023. We're about to go into the year 2023. It's 50-50. That's my stat.
It's 50-50 what?
Men and women.
Owning private jets?
Yeah.
You think
yes.
that there's an equal amount of women that own private jets to men?
I'm being dead serious as well.
You think
yes.
Okay, I gotta ask you this then. Do you think there's an equal amount of women that own supercars to men? Not that there's not women that own supercars, because there are.
No, but that's just because men are more so going to buy supercars.
Don't you think men are more so going to buy private jets?
Not necessarily, no.
No?
No.
What about boats?
50-50.
50-50? Do you think it's 50-50 in terms of the amount of millionaires there are? Or do you think there's more male millionaires and billionaires?
I'd say 60-40.
Okay, let's go 60-40. Whilst I agree that some women can afford jets, majority of the time, it's the guy that owns the jet.
No, I disagree. I actually disagree.
Based on what? We don't even have to pull up stats to try and disprove you right now. Just based on what you've seen on Instagram alone and what you've seen on Twitter, what you've seen on Facebook and YouTube, the overwhelming majority of people with private jets are men.
Where are you? Who are you seeing? What, because a footballer might have one? What about Kylie Jenner? What about Kim Kardashian?
No, I'm not saying women don't have private jets. I'm saying the majority of owners of private jets
I don't think so. You know, you can't believe everything you see online. There's a lot of people, I will tell you now, Michael, that hire private jets.
True.
For holidays, and then they fly the girls out on these private jets, but they don't actually own these private jets. Men are more likely to hire out a supercar, a boat, and a jet for image to get women.
I'm not saying that there's not men that are doing that, but if you think that it's 50-50, then that kind of throws out the
But if there's no statistics, then you can't come at me for thinking that it's 50-50.
Well, I'm pretty sure we can find the statistics on it if you really want to do that. But what I'm saying to you is that if you think that it's an even split, then the gender pay gap, even on a profession level, doesn't exist.
But I thought there was no gender pay gap.
No, there's a gender pay gap, but not because we're doing the same job. There's a gender pay gap because men tend to do jobs that are harder than women, and they occupy the STEM fields. But if you honestly think that there are the same amount of women purchasing these high value assets as there are men, then there must be an equal amount of powerful, rich women as there are to men, which we obviously know that's not true. So it would stand to reason that these big ships, these supercars and these jets are owned by men majority of the time. Otherwise, you're literally going against what we know to be true.
No, not really.
Well,
because not every rich person's going to own a jet.
No, not every
Maybe more women are willing to spend their money on a private jet.
Saby, come on. We know that's not true.
Michael, get the stats up.
Just going off this alone already, at the highest end, men would be dominating. And that's not a put down on women. Of course men would be dominating this. Just like men are going to be dominating the majority of supercars owned in boats. So it's okay to say. I don't know why you would get triggered by that.
I'm not triggered.
I would say if rich women probably own more shoes and handbags than men do.
We've digressed. Let's go back to the video.
Now you're getting very near the knuckle with some of those tweets.
Am I?
You tell me.
I don't think so. I think people can understand they're semi-satirical. I think people can understand.
Do you mean them as jokes or do you mean them?
It's not that I don't mean them as jokes. I mean, they're a overall public commentary and observation. I do mean what I say. If I were to see a girl on a private plane on Instagram, for example, I would assume that a man put her on that private plane. I would not assume she bought it herself.
What if it was...
Perhaps that makes me misogynistic.
What if it was Ariana Grande or Beyonce?
Well, that's slightly different, isn't it?
Why?
Because they're famous and very
They're
rich.
women?
Yeah, of course, and they're famous and very rich. But
So there are lots of women you wouldn't think that if you actually saw them on a private plane.
Well, if I saw a 19-year-old girl from Moldova where the average wage is $200 a month and she was on a private jet, I would assume that with the balance of probabilities, considering I'm an adult, it's very likely because of her beauty, a man has put her on that private plane. Yes. If that makes me misogynistic instead of just perspicacious enough to understand how the world works, so be it. I'm a realist.
Should you be such a generalist about these things?
Well, you have to be a generalist when you're looking for in the balance of probabilities.
What do you think about that? It's a fair point, right?
That point's fair enough, yes, but it's not.
He did say his tweet was partly satirical. So it's partly in jest. That's why I laughed.
Yeah, I know, and so was some of them tweets, but anyway, moving on.
Okay.
So I get it, but he's saying he wouldn't feel that way because Beyonce and Ariana Grande are famous and rich. Okay, but there might be a female who's rich but just not famous.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But majority of the time, if you saw a beautiful girl on a private jet, even you would assume.
Look, I have nothing against his point of making he does not want to entertain a girl who he's seen is on a private jet. That's fine. I just didn't like everything else he said.
Well, when he said
all women are brokies and you should have been a virgin when I met you, haram. I can respect his life, you know how we were saying everyone's got their own preference and taste? That's fine. I can respect that.
I think the joke that he's making there is that the only way those beautiful women are getting on the private jets is if they're giving something up. So I think that what he's saying is that if he sees a beautiful young woman on a private jet, more often than not, she doesn't have the money and the resource to purchase it at a young age like that. So she's most likely giving it up to whoever's put her on the private jet. So I think that's where the joke was. But can I just say
that's not always the case?
I'm sure it's not always the case, but I would say majority of the time it probably is. On a private jet?
Everyone just always assumes shit.
Well, no, it's fair to make an assumption on something like that, right? It would be fair to assume, like it's okay to make assumptions on certain things.
Yeah, we talk off camera. Don't worry, I haven't been on no private jets with no men, don't worry.
That didn't sound good.
You've praised the Taliban in the past. Would you do so again tonight?
The world is not black and white. The world is gray. It's very difficult to sit and make black and white assumptions about anything, to sit and say that the Taliban are completely and utterly evil and we're completely and utterly good, as you just discussed with the moral high ground. I believe that the Taliban bring law and order. It may not be the law and order we like, but it's a form of law and order, and humans usually gravitate
towards... What about
their
treatment of women? I mean, only tonight they have banned any women from going to university.
Fantastic. Let's get the feminists to go and teach them a lesson. The feminists are so tough. And they stand up and say they can do anything a man can do. Let's arm them up and send them to Afghanistan. I'm sure they'll fix it.
No, but it's not. It's a serious matter, isn't it? That women don't.
Is it just me or is Andrew Tate look like he's getting more and more angry as this interview's going on? He seems like he wants to tear someone's head off. He doesn't seem as calm as he usually does. Which is not. This is not a slight Andrew Tate. He just seems like he's ready to tear someone's head off right now. I disagree. You can bring law and order, but the Taliban are not a good institution. Like the things that they do seem archaic to me, and I think most people would be willing to agree. I get his point that obviously the feminists over here are not going to say anything to the Taliban if they've got any sense in their brain. I wouldn't approach them myself. I'd be shitting myself. They only operate...
Did you just say I wouldn't approach them myself?
Myself? Did I say myself? My multiple personalities would not approach the Taliban. The feminists in this country and in the West need to obviously realize that they're only able to exercise the kind of liberties that they do because we live in such a free society, or much more free than there. They would not dare do half the shit they do over here, over there. They know damn well they wouldn't. And they know they're not going to speak up for the women out there that can't go to university. Now, maybe the Middle Eastern women over here might march over here, but again, they're marching over here in the safety and the confines of the UK. They ain't marching out there. We all know that. It's just not going to happen.
That's the education they deserve.
And that's a very serious answer. If women are just as capable as men in terms of combat, like feminists pretend they are, then they can go over there and they can deal with the Taliban.
A lot of women do go to combat.
Oh, exactly. So they can go deal with the Taliban. It's nothing to do with me. They can stand up and fight for their own rights.
Surely you wouldn't defend the Taliban banning women from university.
It's saying it's nothing to do with me, Piers. It's absolutely nothing to do with me.
What about the Afghan women?
It's nothing to do with me on any level.
You don't have a view?
I have a view. My view is that people naturally gravitate towards law and order, and if you didn't have the Taliban, you'd have different warlords operating in lawlessness, and there would be no way to prevent your store or your market stall getting completely robbed by someone with an AK-47, and people are going to gravitate towards a form of law and order. America left. They left a power vacuum, and the power vacuum is now full.
Well, I don't disagree with that.
Okay, well,
but I do think the banning of women from university in Afghanistan is utterly horrific.
And I think the feminists are going to arm themselves. They're going to show us that they can do anything a man can do. They're going to go over there to combat, and they're going to teach Taliban a lesson.
Why can't you just say on that, you know what, it's completely wrong?
Because it's not my point. I don't understand.
But it makes me think. It'll make your critics think that you don't think it's wrong.
They could ban all men. They could ban all short people.
But they're not. They're only banning women.
Correct. They could ban all short people. They could ban all people with long hair. None of it's anything to do with me. So they can do whatever they want. I'm not going to go to war with the Taliban.
But you've just literally spent an impassioned first segment comparing the way, for example, Dubai handles law and order to this country.
Correct.
So you do express views about different laws.
Absolutely. Both places.
So when I put to you a law that basically bans women from being educated, it's not. Why is it a problem for you to say, you know what, it's wrong?
They're both places I've resided in, Dubai and London, so I have personal experience. I can give my personal opinion, but like I said, it has absolutely nothing to do with me with what the Taliban decide to do inside of Afghanistan. And if they decide that's the most prudent way to run their society, then we have two choices. We can either go over there and start another war that we shouldn't be involved in and waste a bunch of life, or we can sit and say it's up to them. They should govern themselves. They're people. We're no better than them. And they've decided to live their lives a particular way, and that's how they're going to live it. Like I said, if feminists are very upset and they're very disgusted by the fact that in Afghanistan, women cannot go to school, I've been told repeatedly by feminists that they're just as capable as men in all realms, and I expect them to arm themselves and fly over to Afghanistan and fix it.
Like a lot of women have done in combat.
Good. Congratulations. Go fight. Well, this is the thing that's very interesting, because when you talk about ideas, it's not even just about Afghanistan and feminism. When you talk about ideas, they must all be defended at some point. There has to come down to violence. The world is backed by violence. Nobody wants to talk about this. It doesn't matter what it is. If you have a disagreement between two parties, eventually, if the disagreement continues, it ends up in violence. Feminism is defended by men. Men stand up and defend feminism, not feminists themselves, because they're incapable of violence. And we're in a situation now where you're saying that we should send men to go and fight for feminism. Why? It's not a man's problem.
No, I think I'm saying
feminists believe.
I think men can be feminists too, because if feminism believes in equality for women, I'll sign up to it. I don't agree with radical feminists who hate men. Right? To me, the radical anything to me is a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think most feminism in the West currently is radical.
Well, some of it is, no question.
Absolutely, but this is my point. My point is that the Taliban are going to do whatever the Taliban decide to do. If I'm going to fly over to another country, I will respect their laws and customs. It's not my job to come along and tell other people how to live. I don't believe I have a moral high ground in that degree. And if people are genuinely upset and disgusted by it, the bottom line in most disagreements on the earth is violence. People who feel like they should go and fix it, then fix it with violence, then it can be the feminists who feel so outraged by it. But it's funny, they don't comment on these subjects, feminists. They seem to instead attack the Western male for some reason.
They're not going to say anything. And if anyone's going to go in there and take out the Taliban, it ain't going to be a bunch of women. It's going to be a bunch of dudes that are going to go out on their shields defending the rights of women. Again, and he's right. The whole reason that feminists are able to protest and do the things that they're doing over here is because they live in a society where men will back them. The minute that all men turn their backs on women protesting and feminism will cease to exist. And that might be a hard thing for feminists to swallow, but if you've ever read a history book or you're paying attention to what's happening around you, the reason that you have the ability to do a lot of these things is because good men allow you to do them. And that might not even sound nice to say, but just consider the fact that if all these men around you were not there defending your right to protest, I hate to put it this way, but basically allowing you to exist in a place where you have the freedom to do what you want. If all those men turn their backs on you, exactly what are you going to do? If we're being 100% honest, right? What exactly are you going to do? Imagine all the good men around you decided, I'm tired of you. Tired of your feminism, tired of listening to you. And they decide that you're not allowed to protest in the streets anymore. You're not allowed to practice feminism, sexual liberation and all that's out the window. Exactly what are you going to do? So I get Andrew Tate's point, because they demonize men in the West a lot, because they are allowed to demonize men in the West a lot, because men in the West allow it to happen. If men become more militant like they were back in the day, or if they become more militant like they are in some other countries, you ain't going to get to do it. It's the same way that, and I'm not comparing women to children, but it's the same way adults control children, because we have the means to do so. Women are not going to go to a Middle Eastern country or to wherever else where women are being oppressed and fight for them in combat. Because like Andrew Tate said, when you can't resolve things diplomatically and you can't come to a peaceful resolution, what is the next response? It's fighting. Some sort of combat, it's guerrilla warfare. And in those situations, men are the ones that are doing the fighting. So that might be unpopular to say. It might upset some people, but that is the way it is. I know they say the pen is mightier than the sword. That's true in some instances, but in a lot of instances, the sword is mightier.
You deleted a video in which you praised ISIS. Why?
I don't know which video you're talking about in particular. It might have been a video from a long time ago. But in general, I understand that, like I said, the world is not black and white. The world is gray areas, and Western imperialism as a whole has been causing more problems than it's ever fixed, and it's disgusting. And I don't know the exact video you're referencing, but sometimes when an underdog destroys a Western imperialist, I have a degree of, I wouldn't say satisfaction, but
satisfaction.
No, but there's certainly a degree of
the way ISIS.
I don't know the particular.
Themselves.
I don't know about the particular video we're talking about.
ISIS were one of the most deadly terror groups in the world.
Absolutely.
They committed a series of appalling atrocities, killing innocent people left, right, and centre. Yeah. How could you possibly have satisfaction?
Well, if it's the video I'm recollecting, if it's the video we're talking about, it's about the fact that I believed ISIS was funded by the West and created by the West in the first place. And it wasn't a degree of satisfaction like I'm happy ISIS exists. It was a commentary on the world.
Well, here's what you said. ISIS are the real Muslims because ISIS do exactly what the book says. Kill everyone who's not a Muslim and chop people's heads off and set them on fire and be raging lunatics. But all the other Muslims go, they're not real Muslims because I read the book, and ignore those parts. Well, then you're not an effing Muslim because you're ignoring the effing book.
That's an interesting point you've just raised, because I am now Islamic. And it's funny because I used to be an atheist, and when you're an atheist, you believe that religion causes more problems than it fixes, and then you come to a realization and you start to learn the truth of yourself and the truth of God, and you realize that religion is actually the cure for most of the problems in the world, and godlessness is the problem in the world. So that is something I will apologize for and admit I was wrong about, because I was atheistic, and now as a Muslim I understand that's absolutely not the case. If that's the particular video you're talking about, then there's...
Well, that's really interesting.
I mean, you apologize for it. I think that was a bad take. What he said was a bit mad.
Yeah. This is it. I think he's definitely come a long way from the stuff he was putting out and saying before. And I think he's now realised that not everything he was saying was acceptable.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say it's okay.
No, what he said,
you know what I
wasn't
mean?
okay.
Like, because there's a lot of people who have said bad things and they're out here getting cancelled and stuff. But I suppose he's already been cancelled and that. But
people are allowed to evolve and change their stances.
Yeah.
My stance on religion has changed massively from when I was a kid. I used to absolutely hate religion. I used to hate religious types. I didn't have any time for them whatsoever. I thought religion was the cause of all evil in the world. And as I grew up and I became more educated on the matter, and I spoke to more religious types and tried to see things from their perspective, my position on it changed. Now, I'm not Muslim, I'm not Christian, but I don't dismiss those people at all anymore. I'm always willing to listen to them. I think there's a lot of wisdom that can be gained from listening to people that are well-versed in their religion. I'm not so up myself to think that there can't be any truth to it. There's definitely things that can be learned. Whether there is a God or not really is besides the point. I think there's a lot that can be learned from listening or reading religious teachings. They can be taken as sort of guidelines as well. So yeah, I mean, what he said, if he did say that, because I've never seen that video of him saying that, but if he did say that, that's a crazy thing to say, and I'm glad he apologized.
Yeah, I think he knew from the get-go what Piers was saying, because he kept saying, I don't remember what you're talking about. I don't remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, because, I mean, but the thing is, as an atheist, when I was an atheist, because I would consider myself agnostic now. I believe there's something out there. I just don't know what it is. And so I'm more willing to listen now. But as an atheist, I used to say some pretty mean things about religious people as well that I wouldn't repeat now. Luckily for me, I'm not as famous as Andrew Tate, so they're not going to get brought up. People are not going to know outside of my house. But if they did, I would apologize for them now. But you say things when you're growing up, whether that's a kid or a teenager, so you're allowed to evolve. He apologized for it. So that's that. He apologized. We can move past it.
Interesting. So you regret saying that?
Yeah, because you learn and you grow and you evolve, as I said. At the time, I believed it because I didn't believe in God at the time. It was a very long time ago. It's actually kind of a testament to you, Piers. You managed to find the oldest possible videos of me that have ever existed. But at the time, I was atheistic.
Well, no, I was curious because you have recently converted to Islam.
Correct.
So these questions, I think, are pertinent to your conversion.
Absolutely.
As to what you actually believe as a practicing Muslim now.
Yeah, I believe that Islam is beautiful. I believe it's the last true religion on earth. It's certainly the last respected religion on earth. And I felt differently inside since I've converted. And I think it has the solutions to a lot of the problems we're facing in the world today. That particular video was once again satirical. A lot of people watching this would not have seen it. They would not have seen the joke element of it. It's fine. But
it's not funny, though, is it?
Well, you know, it's like most of the time, as we discussed in our first interview with me. Things are taken out of context, short form, et cetera, et cetera. But all in all, you could say the same things about Christians. If you were to read the Old Testament and say, stick to the Old Testament, you'd kill anyone who works on a Sunday.
Have I understood this wrong, or did he just apologize and then basically backtrack and be like, well, it was funny and it was taken out of context?
No, he's not. He's not backtracking. He's saying that the video at the time was supposed to be satirical. Piers said, but it's not funny.
It's not. And then he goes, well,
yeah, I mean,
it's been taken out of context. No, you can't. No, you can't apologize and say, hold your hands up and say it's wrong, and then in the same breath be like, well, you know, no.
No, because someone could find it funny, but you can also apologize for the crude.
Look at what happened to True Geordie.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that someone can find what you're saying funny, and you can still apologize for the crude nature of it. Now, we didn't see the video to see the way he was being emotive in the video or what he was doing. There's a lot of crude jokes that are made on South Park, right, and on Simpsons and Family Guy.
Yeah.
If you read out the joke without watching the animation, it might sound far worse than what it was.
I get that.
So you can say that it's taken out of context. And also apologize because now he is of the Islamic faith.
No, because he said, I've grown and I've evolved. So he's outright said, do you know what, it was wrong, I'm sorry, I've grown and I've evolved.
Yeah, but even if he grew and evolved, what if I laughed at it? It can still be taken as a joke by somebody. And he, in his current form, could be like, I don't find it funny myself anymore. It doesn't mean that I won't find it funny. So you can take things out of context. Like, for example, someone could take our podcast and they could remove the image and just hear me talking to you, and it might sound far worse than if they were watching me talk to you. So I think that's what he's getting at. I don't think he's taking his apology back. He's
not taking it back, but the apology now doesn't seem sincere, or like he generally knows he said something bad because he's now saying this. That's the way I take it.
Well, you could say the same things about Christians. If you were to read the Old Testament and say, stick to the Old Testament, you'd kill anyone who works on a Sunday. So it's not applicable to
you wouldn't countenance violence.
Say again?
You don't countenance violence.
I absolutely do not countenance violence. When I was talking about violence being the bottom line decider between disagreeing points of view, it's not I'm calling for violence. I'm just making a commentary on how the world genuinely functions.
But when you use a word like satisfaction, you understand that people will watch that and think, how can you possibly find any form of terrorism satisfying?
I don't find any form of terrorism satisfying. I don't find Western terrorism satisfying either. I don't think it's satisfying that we managed to find $500,000 per bomb to drop on some farmer who makes $4 a day under the name of freedom. And we can't seem to pay our nurses enough to do their jobs. I don't find any kind of terrorism. And it's actually very interesting you talk about the word terrorism. Terrorist and freedom fighter, good guy and bad guy, all of this is subjective. There are people who believe that the West are the biggest terrorists on the earth. There are people who believe that America causes more wars than anyone else, and they've killed more people than anyone else. And there's people who believe the absolute opposite. So once again, it depends who you're talking to. It's a subjective conversation. There's no black and white in the world. There's areas of gray, and that's how it is. So I thought you were talking about another video where I was saying that ISIS are standing up and fighting for what they believe in. I'm not saying what they believe in is right, but that's what they were fighting for at the time. And it was a completely different video than the one you were actually referencing.
But you would condemn them now?
I don't condemn anybody doing anything bad to anybody. I'm not a person out here with a criminal record. I don't hurt anyone. I just spent my first segment on this show talking about how I believe in law and order and how important that is. I think people can operate inside of their lives safely and walk around, man, woman, child, can walk around in safety in any city they live in. How that law and order is constructed is not my jurisdiction. I'm not in charge of the law and order of Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, any of them. It's nothing to do with me.
It's a pretty smart stance to take, I think. because, you know, a lot of the times we condemn these things that we can't do anything about. And I'm not saying people are wrong for being angry at what ISIS might do to people, but I think someone in Andrew Tate's position, I think he's probably being pretty smart about it. He's living in a Muslim country. He travels all over the world. You don't want to chat shit about the wrong people and then they catch you slipping. So I think Piers trying to get him to condemn them, whilst people might look at that and think, like, how can this guy not condemn ISIS or the Taliban? I think the reason that he's not outright condemning them is, one, he's part of the Islamic faith now. And even if people within Islam don't agree with what ISIS and the Taliban are doing, you have to consider it from Andrew Tate's point of view, where he's a very high profile individual. Make no mistake, the Taliban and ISIS know who he is, just like everybody else does. He's got to be very careful with what he says and who he offends. You're not the kinds of people you want to be pissing off. If I was in his position, I would have done the same thing. Because at the end of the day, whether he condemns them or not, there is nothing that he can do about that. The Taliban and ISIS are the problems of the government, and there are problems that were caused by the government. It's for them to solve. So before anyone jumps down his throat, I completely understand why he's taking that stance. Try to consider it from his point of view. He's not like me and Saby sitting in the comfort of our homes talking about someone on YouTube. He's out there. People know who he is. He has to walk around with armed guards. It's not wise to be condemning a terror group.
So Ash Sarkar, who's a lively contributor to this programme, has tweeted, Andrew Tate, who you're interviewing about free speech, thinks women are a man's property. We shouldn't be allowed to drive. Boasts about only dating teenagers to imprint on them. Misogynists are discussing whether they're in Afghanistan or a swanky London studio.
Am I a misogynist, am I? I don't think, first of the things she said, I don't even truly believe. If you're prepared to listen to me, I'll explain to you exactly why she's completely and utterly wrong. If you can go through the points again, she said,
do you think you're a misogynist?
Absolutely not. I'm not a misogynist on any level. This is one of those buzzwords they just throw at people randomly. Homophobic, racist, misogynist, they just throw it out at people.
What is your view of women?
I'm a realist.
What is your real view of women?
I absolutely not really love women. I adore women. I have good relationships with women. Not a single woman has come up to me on the street since I've been canceled. Not a single one has said anything negative. Every single one of them has said positive things. You're a traditional male. I wish more men were like you. You understand your masculine roles. You understand what you're supposed to do. You understand you're supposed to protect women. You're exactly the kind of man I'd be looking for. I've never had a negative interaction with a female ever since I've been dubbed the biggest misogynist.
Where is the...
Please let me finish. I'm sorry, Piers. Also, there's not been a single woman who's accused me of a crime, not a single woman who's accused me of rape, not a single woman who's come out and said anything from my entire past of 36 years I've done anything wrong ever. Anybody else with my level of fame, any footballer, any other movie star, at least has people who've come out and accused them of rape, X, Y, Z. I have no woman who's come out and ever said I've hurt her, no woman who's come out and ever said I've done damage to her or been horrible to her. Everybody who ever interacted with me has said I've been a nice person. All of them. So this random Twitter nobody who seems to know so much is full of...
All right, you've responded to her tweet.
Yeah, she's a liar.
But where is the line for you between masculinity, which I will always defend, and which I agree with? I think a lot of women like men to be masculine, and what has become known as toxic masculinity. And the reason I ask you is that you are engaged in that debate with men all the time. Where is the line for you where men shouldn't cross, where the behaviour should be kept within a line?
Please define toxic masculinity.
Well, you tell me what you think it crosses a line from being a masculine, good man to a bad man.
There's no such thing as too much masculinity if it's genuinely masculine. Genuine masculinity is not out here to hurt people. It's absolutely the opposite. It's out here to protect. And when bad things happen, they call traditionally masculine men. If you need a firefighter, you need a masculine man. When you call the police because of the problem you have, you want masculine men. And as soon as a woman or a man is in trouble, when you look for backup, you look for masculine men. And masculine men have a duty to provide and protect those they care about. We have a duty to do things we don't feel like doing because we know we're supposed to do them. And that's why we stayed in the Titanic and died. Those were masculine men.
Where did you get your views about this from?
This is what I grew up with. It's the family I grew up around. And
toxic masculinity, if I was going to use that word, I would say it's the kinds of people that prey on children. It's the kinds of people that abuse women. It's the kinds of people that abuse their power. And I don't think that is... if I had to call it toxic masculinity, if you put a gun to my head and I had to name something, then fine. But I wouldn't attribute that with masculinity at all. Those are just bad things that people do. Like, true masculinity is protecting, right? It's becoming strong enough and competent enough to be a protector to those around you and to be competent and to wield a level of responsibility and accountability that people not only aspire to be like, but that basically makes it so that you're the leader, that you're the figurehead that people can turn to and feel safe. the idea that traditionally masculine men are now toxic is absurd. And I would like for Piers to define what toxic masculinity is, because you ask people all the time, what is toxic masculinity? And they never give you a response. There's never a concrete answer to it. It's always, oh, it's just men that are bad. That's not an answer. So I hope that Piers answers the question, although I'm willing to bet he's not going to.
Where did you get your views about this from?
This is what I grew up with. It's the family I grew up around. And
your father, your mother?
Yeah,
both?
and the world I lived in. And I think a lot of the things I'm saying now about masculinity and how people should act in the world, how the world should function, were considered completely normal and accepted by everybody only 20 years ago. I think the world's just lost its mind. For me to stand up and say a man should protect a woman now gets to be called a misogynist and canceled. If I said that 10 years ago, everyone would say, duh. And what's funny is, everyone who argues against me and says men shouldn't protect women, especially all the feminists, if they were with their boyfriend and a man broke into their house, guess who they'd expect to go downstairs? Who do you think? Think they go themselves? Are they going to Afghanistan? No, we send men to do these things. So
well, we send women in the armed forces too.
You have to generalize when you make points.
There are many courageous people.
Exceptions do not disprove the rule.
No, but you've got to concede there are many courageous women serving in the armed forces.
Absolutely and utterly, completely correct. But by and large, traditionally, soldiers are men. Exceptions do not disprove the rule.
Well, it's not an exception. It's a fact that there are a lot of women now in the armed forces.
Correct. But if you were...
It is an exception, though. The overwhelming majority of the armed forces around the world for all armies are men. The overwhelming majority. Like overwhelming majority are men. That's not to put women down. There are a lot of women. I know a woman in the armed forces where I think she's been discharged now, or she's stopped. She earned all sorts of medals and that from her tours being in Afghanistan, Iraq and all that. There are women that are doing it 100%. But if you're talking in generalities, of course it is men. Of course it's men. For all armies, in every country it's men. It's more so you'll find women in the army in Western civilizations, but even then it's still overwhelmingly dominated by men. In other places, it's all men. You don't get women in the army at all in other places. So what Andrew Tate is saying is right. The men will go out there to defend the ideas of the nation that they're fighting for, and the women will be at home. That's not to put women down. There has to be someone back home keeping everything going and raising the children, because the children are the next generation. That is very important as well. But for some reason, that's not looked at as a good thing by women as well. They want to be out there doing these crazy things that men are kind of forced to do. And nobody wants to be out there fighting a war, trust me. There's no guy that wants to go to war.
Correct, but by and large, traditionally, soldiers are men. Exceptions do not disprove the rule.
Well, it's not an exception. It's a fact that there are a lot of women now in the armed forces.
Correct. But if you were to take the average soldier, they are a male. If you're allowed to say who's a male and who isn't nowadays, I'm assuming their gender, I apologize. If you were to take the average soldier, they're a male, which means that exceptions are the female soldiers, which because there's a lower percent of them, a lower probability. Exceptions do not disprove the rules. Men do the fighting. Right now in Ukraine, men cannot leave. Women are allowed to leave because men have to fight in the front line and women are allowed to go to Dubai. That is how it is.
What do you say to young men who come to you for advice, who feel lost, who don't really know where they fit into society?
I say that life as a man is exceptionally difficult. I say the most beautiful and the most terrifying thing about being a man is you're born without value. Society doesn't care about you. You're only going to be cared about based on how useful you are. You have the chance to build yourself up and become a superhero if you're prepared to do the hard work and be indefatigable enough to never quit. But if you're going to stand around and wait for a handout, nobody's going to ever respect you. And I think that a lot of people have forgotten about how difficult and how competitive it is as a man. We're always in constant competition with each other. And it's your duty as a man to stand up and say, I want to be as important and strong and good-hearted and God-fearing as possible. And I need to work hard to achieve those things.
Dame Sheila Hancock says we've become too over-emotional as a society, crying too much about everything. Has she got a point? She's
completely right. And the dangerous thing about overly emotional men is that they're dangerous. They're genuinely dangerous. This is what's crazy. All these people who talk about toxic masculinity and how bad it is for men to be traditionally masculine. A traditionally masculine man does things he doesn't feel like doing because it is his duty to do them. He charges into the building because it is his duty. Not because he feels like it, because it is his duty. We're now teaching the new generation of men that they don't have duty and they can just act on their feelings and act how they feel, and they don't have to act as a man should. Do you know what happens when you get men who just act how they feel? You get school shooters, you get violence, you get rapists. Men who do not control their emotions are dangerous. If you find a man who is stoic, he's not going to hurt people.
Isn't this what I was saying? This is exactly what I was saying. people have this warped idea of what toxic masculinity is, and they look in all the wrong places. Guys do what they have to do, and that's a good thing. It is a good thing to wake up in the morning and realize that I don't want to do this thing, but it needs to be done because, you know, I'm a guy and there's certain things that need to get done in the day. Guys that don't know how to control their emotions are the ones that are doing the crazy things. And those are the ones that will be white knighting for these girls, you know. They'll be on social media with their red beards saying, oh, you know, men are not necessary, and, you know, women this and women that. Those are the ones that you need to be wary of. The ones that are constantly licking your ass, the ones that are, you know, saying all these things about you, like blowing smoke up your ass and stuff. Those are the ones you need to be careful of. Those are the ones that are going to bite you in the ass. Not the guys out here doing what needs to be done. The ones that you think, oh, this guy is just too... He's too like traditionally masculine or some whatever bullshit word they want to use.
But it's because it's not fair that it has to be that way.
What do you mean?
Of men feeling like they just have to get on with it because they're a man.
But fair doesn't come into it. You're burdened with a certain level of responsibility being the stronger sex. You just gotta get shit done. Like, for example, if I was in a tough situation, I wouldn't send my girlfriend out to make the situation better, because physically I'm probably going to last longer than her in whatever I'm doing. Like, if I'm working in difficult circumstances, I wouldn't put that on my girl. She wasn't born with the same level of strength that I have. Understanding that and building upon that, you know, going to the gym and looking after yourself and understand that you can weather more than what a woman can. That's not to say that you can't go to the gym and build yourself up. But like at our base level, in that regard, I'm going to be higher than you. So you do have a certain level of responsibility to go out there and do things that might be uncomfortable. And, you know, no one wants to wake up at 4 a.m. and go into the freezing cold to get something done. But if it has to be done, it has to be done. But it's true. We're teaching guys now. There's this whole thing going around called quiet quitting, where people just don't want to do their jobs anymore. So they're quietly quitting and just faffing about, doing nothing. They've got no sense of urgency, no sense of responsibility. They don't understand that at the drop of a dime, the world could just turn on its head, which we saw in the last 2 years. Yeah. All these people just out here spending their money recklessly, no responsibility whatsoever. And then those are the same people that'll be like, oh, you're boring, you're always indoors. Well, you're stingy with money. And then look what happens.
He's going to sit and think about his actions very carefully, and he's going to be a good man who protects and provides for his family. You find a man who just acts out on impulse and does whatever he feels like, you're going to find a dangerous man. Sitting here telling men to cry more and act with their feelings and it's okay to feel this way, that way, etc., and have no self-control. That is why we have the problems we have in the world. Absolutely not wrong. So when they talk about toxic masculinity, they have it completely inversed on its head, completely not wrong. We need to be teaching stoicism. We need to be teaching young men to understand that the world is very, very difficult. It's hard to be a man. You're going to feel bad sometimes. You need to suck it up and perform anyway. Not to sit there and cry your eyes out or blame other people.
Tough being a woman, too, in modern society.
It's certainly tough being a woman, but I'm not a woman, so why would I speak on issues I do not understand? I'm a man.
You can feel an empathy for women.
I feel empathy, certainly, but I do not understand their issues.
See, a lot of men come up to me and they admire you. I've got to say, a lot of women I've spoken to don't admire. They think you represent misogyny. They think when they hear you not commit to saying the Taliban shouldn't be banning women from university education, well, why can't he just say that's wrong?
Well, firstly, that's not my experience. I experience the absolute and utter opposite of that. Secondly, it's because it's a moral point I'm making. My moral point is I speak on things I understand. I speak on experiences I've had.
But you believe in equality?
I speak on subjects I know intimately. I do not feel qualified. I'm a realist, and I do not feel qualified to sit and discuss the gender laws in Afghanistan. I have not been to Afghanistan. I have not researched the subject thoroughly. I'm not going to sit here and say how the Taliban should be running their country. It's nothing to do with me. I find it quite flattering, Piers, that although, you know, I understand I'm monumentally influential, the most Google man on earth, etc., I find it very flattering that you think I have some kind of control over the domestic policy of Afghanistan. But I assure you I don't. I don't.
No,
so it's nothing to do with
I'm not asking you to have a view on having influence of a domestic policy. I'm sure the Taliban couldn't give a stuff what either of us said.
I think you were right. You know, I think Andrew Tate learned from the last time. Can you see how assertive he's being? He's not having it this time. Like when I was saying
that's why he looks so angry as well.
Yeah, he looks worked up. I think he's letting Piers know, don't cross that line again. Like, you already crossed it once. But what he's saying is true. I tell people this all the time. You don't need to have an opinion on everything. You can just say, not really too sure, even if it sounds crazy. Now, yeah, the Taliban banning women from going to university sounds crazy. But Andrew Tate's stance on it is not that insane. It might seem insane to not just be like, oh, I want to ban this thing, but he strikes me as the kind of person that wants to know every single intricate detail of why someone has done something and then comment.
Yeah.
Which, again, that might trigger some people because it's like, it feels like it's such an obvious thing. You know, you should allow women to go to university. But I get where he's coming from completely. I think he's making a broader point here where like people just comment on shit they have no idea about. They'll hear something, they'll read a headline. Not to say that I haven't done this myself. I certainly have. I think we can be impulsive and we see something and we're just like, I need to say something.
Yeah.
But you don't need to have an opinion on everything, even if it's polarizing. You do not need to. You can just be like, look, it's not my jurisdiction. I don't know what the hell's going over there. I'm not from the Middle East. I ain't saying nothing. I'm not against what he's saying right now.
No, that's what I'm like as a person.
Yeah, just it's better to just not comment if you don't know.
I'm not asking you to have a view on having influence of a domestic policy. I'm sure the Taliban couldn't give a stuff what either of us say about it. It's just curious to me that it's an easy win for you to make women think you're not anti them, to say that when they're not given equality, as the women in Afghanistan clearly are not, because they're not allowed to go to university now as of today, that is clearly unequal, unfair. We should all be able to agree that that is wrong.
Well, certainly as a realist...
Even you, tough guy Andrew
It's
Tate.
not tough guy. I am a professional. As a professional, I can state that, yes, it is not equal. Yes, it is not fair. That is obvious for anybody. I'm not saying those things are not true. What I'm saying is it's nothing to do with me.
Right, OK, but you made a concession you think is wrong there.
I said it's unequal and it's unfair.
Yeah, so wrong.
Well, perhaps.
Force yourself, Andrew.
No, perhaps it's wrong under certain moral guidelines, but under the moral guidelines which are currently in charge of the jurisdiction of Afghanistan, they don't believe it's wrong. It's nothing to do with me. Well, I'm not going to sit here and tell other countries how to run their laws. I'm going to live in societies with laws I respect.
You know what? I'll take unfair and unequal.
Sure.
What has chess taught you about life, quickly?
I can teach you a lot of things. Like I said about the queen being able to run around the board, the king having to move a square at a time, about the fact you need to think ahead, absolutely everything is your fault. But there is a saying, which is actually one of my favorite sayings in the world. It said, a well-played game of chess is a sign of a gentleman, but an expertly played game of chess is the sign of a wasted life. And it's kind of sad.
I played Lennox Lewis on Celebrity Apprentice 39 times out of 40 in America years ago. And he beat me 39 times out of 40, I mean. And I was amazed. He was taught by his mum. But he was all about the way he fought, the way he boxed, was all down to the way he played chess.
Yeah, chess.
It was all about looking ahead, getting ahead of your opponent, planning punches, you know, all that kind of thing.
Chess absolutely reflects life. And even I say this now in my business meetings with my team. A lot of the problem in the world today, especially with teams and businesses, et cetera, everyone wants to be the king. But if you want to have a team, if you want to have a side that wins, if you want to win a game of chess, everybody has to know their role and do their role effectively. There can be a king and a rook and a pawn and a bishop and a knight, and everyone does everything correctly. And when that happens, you have a very formidable board and you're hard to beat. And chess reflects life absolutely. It's something I do every single day.
What kind of man was your father?
He was the greatest man on the face of the planet. But luckily he had me, and now in the natural order of the universe, he is gone, and I am here, and I carry his name, and it is my duty to bring honor to him. And this is one of the greatest things about achievement, because achievement honors your ancestors. People talk about my father because of how successful I am, and people will talk about me into eternity, even after my death, because of how successful my son will be. This is the great thing about achievement. It's an honor to your ancestors.
What would he have made of your success, your father?
He would be extremely underwhelmed by it because he always expected it of me. I am Emory Andrew Tate III. I can do whatever I put my mind to. And he would be like, well, of course, you decided you wanted to become the most famous man on the planet. It took you a few months, of course.
Does your mother ever do what my mother does and occasionally go, I think you went too far there?
My mother has absolute trust in my abilities and capabilities. She says, be careful, do your best, but you are the most capable and competent man on the planet. And
that wasn't the question.
That's what she says. She says, be careful.
Does she ever say you shouldn't have said that?
Nah, she knows better than that.
Really?
No, never. She says, just be careful. You know what you're doing. It's kind of hard to argue against me, and this is what my haters seem to struggle with. It's hard to argue against a person who is monumentally successful in every single human metric that can possibly be measured. This is why young men respect me so much.
But do you ever tell your mother what to do?
They want to be my life.
Do you ever tell her what to do?
I don't need to. She's a full-grown woman.
Would you ever tell her what to do?
I would give her my advice if she asked for it.
You say you can't leave the home, you can't drive, all those things you joke about? Or?
I'd give her my opinion. I would say perhaps you should move house now, or perhaps that's not safe, or yeah, I would absolutely, because I'm responsible for her safety. And when you're responsible for somebody's safety, you have an opinion, and you need to have a firm opinion on that subject. So completely. For any woman I'm responsible for her safety, I will sit and say, that's an unsafe thing to do.
How much are you worth?
I'm a billionaire by now.
Dollars or pounds?
About dollars. We're not in pounds yet, but we'll get there soon.
So what to do?
Yeah, we have a little bit of work to do, but
finally, I know you don't know anything about football and care even less, but greatest of all time, Ronaldo or Messi?
They're both two very hard-working men. I have absolute respect for anybody on earth who dedicates themselves to this.
true though, right? Like if you're with someone and you think they're doing something wrong, especially if you've got a girlfriend or a wife, or even your mum, you would say to her, "Look, mum or wifey, I think you're about to cross the line, and you may regret." The way Piers is trying to frame it as if he is being a dictator, but I think he's just using his experience and the fact that he is, a well-rounded individual to guide somebody that he might see as not as experienced or well-versed in his areas in the right direction.
Yeah, but I think as humans, you should always take other people's feedback on board as well.
Yeah,
because you don't know it all, so he should be willing to take her advice just as much.
Probably is.
Nah, he was just saying she doesn't even say anything.
No, but her not saying anything is not the same as her saying something and him listening.
Do you really think he's a billionaire?
Do I think Andrew Tate's a billionaire?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
$1 billion.
Well, he owns private jets, he owns supercars, he owns casinos, he owns houses in Dubai and Romania and wherever else.
$1 billion's a lot of money.
Yeah, he might be a billionaire. I mean, we know he's definitely a millionaire, right? Definitely a millionaire.
But he just said $1 billion, look.
I mean, he's a billionaire in dollars, he says, not in pounds. So, I mean, either way, it doesn't really matter. He seems to buy whatever he wants. So, that was a much better interview, in my opinion. I think Andrew Tate put his foot down a bit more in this one. He didn't let Piers push his weight around.
But the conversations weren't really anything based on Andrew Tate. It was just his opinion on other issues that's going on in the world.
Well, the thing is, I don't think there's anything else to really ask him that people don't know. He's done the same interviews 100 times now. His videos are out there. Videos that have been deleted off YouTube can be found on other websites. We know everything that we need to know. I'm sure there's things that are private to him that we don't need to be privy to. But all in all, I think it was a better interview. Piers actually let him speak this time. Andrew Tate put his foot down. He was very stern in his responses. And he clowned Piers at chess. So yeah, it was a much better interview. I actually enjoyed that. I'm definitely gonna crop this video down for time, otherwise you guys will be here for 2 hours with us. So we're not gonna put all of that on YouTube. But yeah, I enjoyed it. What do you think?
Yeah.
You think
it was alright?
You seem like you got annoyed at certain parts.
No, I wasn't annoyed about that. I was annoyed at you.
What are you annoyed at me for?
We're not gonna go into this again.
I don't even know what you're annoyed at me for. Like, because it's a joke.
Yeah.
I'm going to edit the joke that you laughed into this video so that you can watch back and understand why they're different.
No.
No, I'm not going to edit, or no, you're not going to watch it back?
I'm not going to change my opinion.
That's fine. You don't have to change it. I just want you to watch it back.
That's fine.
Yeah? All right, cool.
But you better choose the right one and not try frame me for some other bullshit quote. Because I told you I didn't anything in that video I didn't find funny, but I told you my example of funny.
I'm not going to try and frame you. If I try and frame you, people are just going to go back and watch the original video and see that I'm lying.
Okay.
Yeah, you finished?
I'm finished. Are you finished?
I'm finished.
Okay.